Greetings. I'm Steve Cook, Superintendent of Ben Lapine Schools, here with our board meeting update and summary for October 11th, our October board meeting, business board meeting of the 22-23 school year. Pretty long meeting tonight. We got finished just a little after 8 o'clock. We had a lot of highlights for tonight, and I'll start off with the very first one was our celebration of our champion for students, which for tonight it was Lindsay Corley, our office manager at Mountain View High School. What a tremendous asset she is, and what a blessing we have in her for creating the environment at Mountain View High School, in that office, in that school, and staff showed out in spades to share the support for her, and we're very proud of her. Glad to have her representing our district as champion of students for this month. Consent agenda passed without action. We had a finance report from Finance Director Leah Bubeau, which was just quite simply that things are on track, looking normal. Revenue right now is exactly as expected, which is slightly decreased because we've had a small decrease in enrollment, but not a significant one. Just a little below projections, and revenue sources are coming in at that amount. She did state that it's a little early to start talking about whether or not expenditures are on track because it's just so early in the fiscal year. She looks to have those updates for us later in the second quarter. And then by far the highlight of the night was we had a report from our high schools on, we call it college and career readiness, where we talked and dove deeply into our career and tech ed programs, our advanced placement coursework that we have in our high schools, in our 7 high schools, IB program at Bend High, and dual credit programs across almost all of our high schools. We had a lot of folks participating in that. First of all, Executive Director of College and Career Readiness, Stephen Duvall, was kind of headlining that, along with Executive Director of High Schools, Katie Legacy. And a special shout out to the teachers and the students that came tonight. Let me call those teachers out directly. Tiggy Deerdorf from Mountain View High School, Becky Tucker, Paul Hutter from Bend High, Sharon Sieve-King, and Joel Clements, just doing a fantastic job of sharing the work that's going in for our career tech ed programs. And we could have had so many more folks here to talk about what's going on in our high schools, but a special shout out for those folks giving up their evenings to come share stories with us, whether it's about AP exams, whether it's the IB program at Bend High. And Paul was so proud to share the great success that's going on at Bend High, and having students talk about what it's like to go through the IB program. Just a really competitive atmosphere with over almost 3,500 schools across the entire world that are trying to meet the high rigorous expectations of international baccalaureate programming. That took a long time. It was well worth the evening and is a wonderful part of the board meeting. If you want to go and look and see what's going on in our high schools, we have fantastic high schools delivering great programs to our students. The second program of the night that we were doing a report on was Dr. Laura Nordquist giving the Division 22 assurances, which we had 3 things that we were required to report on this year as a part of our Division 22 assurances, that we're meeting all the legal expectations that the state and Department of Education expect for us. The first one were our high school minutes in our choice high schools at Bend Tech and at Realms. And part of that is because of shuttle buses getting kids to those schools from their schools of origin, if you will, meant we were getting squeezed on both ends because those shuttle buses tend to get those students to those schools just a little late. And so she reported on how building leadership at each of those schools have squeezed minutes out of passing periods and a little bit of minutes out of lunch to capture enough minutes so that those students are qualifying for those to be considered full-time. The second one was how we're figuring out ways to meet the PE minutes for elementary and middle schools as a part of that expectation. And we have done just those very things by increasing the amount of minutes at our elementary schools. The third one is a little perfunctory. It is going back and getting approval of materials that were adopted for virtual learning during the pandemic, and making sure that we had that. A lot of thanks go out to Amy Tarnow and Dean Richards for getting that process done and developed so that we could kind of retroactively get board approval for those curriculum that were put into place while we were in the pandemic. And then just a quick shout out to Kinsey Martin, who brought up a new item that will be a part of the Division 22 assurances for next year that we will have to report on, and that is that all school districts, especially those large ones, at least now, smaller districts are going to have a little more time, must have an equity advisory committee. We've currently got one in place already. By statute, we had to have our first meeting by September 15th, I believe. You might have heard them known as the Equity Coalition, that have been in existence for us for a little over a year. And that group has been meeting regularly, and they will be serving, that committee will be serving in the role of the state mandated equity advisory committee. And Kinsey went through some detail on what that's going to look like for us when we have to report on this for next year. And then we moved into the chair report. And the chair report, Chair Barnes-Delakier reported on two things. The first one was the board vacancy. As you know, we have only 6 board members right now. We had a resignation a couple of months ago, and so today was the last day for people that were interested in that position, to at-large board member position, to apply for that. And we have almost 20 applicants at this point. And so the board will start going through the process of vetting those out so that we can get to our eventually selected board member, which will happen. I think finalists are going to be determined by the November meeting, and then the final selection and appointment would happen in the December meeting for that position. And then her second point of sharing for her report was the work we're doing right now, the informational campaign that we're doing right now for the bond initiative that's on the ballot for November. And so lots and lots of opportunities for us to go out and present kind of the story of the bond and how we got to what we're asking and why we're asking for it, with a lot of focus on safety, facility maintenance, with updating and modernizing instructional spaces, and just really the good fortune of, if this does pass, the fact that this will all happen without a tax increase to our constituents. And so that's due to timely retirement of bonds that are currently in place right now that would be coming off the ledger at the end of this fiscal year. And so taking advantage of that opportunity with this informational campaigns going on all over the community, we're talking to any groups that will see us. And so if you know somebody that would benefit from hearing from us, we're glad to go do the roadshow for them. So all you have to do is reach out and let us know. We're glad to do that. Then it was time for the superintendent's report. I was going to talk about the bond as well, but since Melissa did such a wonderful job, I passed on that. So I talked about two things. The first one is our partnership with Care Solis, which is a community partnership in which we are providing access to our students and families for connections into the community for folks that might be struggling with either mental health issues or substance abuse, and how we're accessing that program. This is a new program for the Benton Pines schools, and we've now have over 300 inquiries into that, and we call them warm handoffs, 58 different warm handoffs in which we've connected folks that would have interest and need in that service to providers here in our community. And it's just a great testament to that partnership and our ability to find those connections in the community that can provide that support for our staff and for our staff, students, and their families. And so we're very excited about the way that that's progressing in the community. And then the second part of the superintendent's report was I was talking about the incident with the murals that got painted over at Miller Elementary School and what's next. So how are we going to approach that? And had a really a lot of folks have been meeting to discuss what do we do and how do we learn from that particular situation and how do we move on from that. I had a very productive meeting with the artist, T-Fly, who painted the artwork at Miller Elementary School. That was the kind of the subject of that topic, and a great discussion. And one of the things that she recommended and we found agreement upon is, can we turn this into something positive? And I'm excited about the plan of how we can work forward to find a way to connect with local artists and have beautification happening in our elementary schools as we move forward, and what that might look like to have a local artist partnering with our schools. So we're going to dig into that, and we'll come back to you with more information on that. But look forward to a commitment from us that we're going to see this as a positive going forward, and how we can look at the policy, maybe make some adjustments to the policy, but then also, more importantly, reminder that we need to be bringing joy into our schools, and having murals and paintings or vinyl stickers on walls that are going to inspire and motivate our students should be something we're aspiring to. So we're looking forward to that opportunity. Then a few action items for the board. The first one was, if you recall, we had census work to do with the board zones, and refiguring the precincts due to the 2020 census was something that now school districts that have had growth are responsible for taking care of. And we talked about and did a presentation with the board last month. This is the month for them to take action, and they selected option A, which if you get on our board book, or we'll present this information out to you, demonstrates the new boundaries for the board. And that passed with a full unanimous vote with one abstention. Carrie McPherson Douglas abstained because her current residence is one of the modified zones that were changed, and so she abstained in that vote. The second action item was the board approving the district's agreement to partner with Keller Rohrbach, the law firm that is leading at least school districts in the state of Oregon in litigation against Juul, the vaping company, for the alleged, I guess I'd call it inappropriate marketing campaign. Potentially, that's what there's potential for interest in. And so we're going to be a part of that process and potentially that litigation. And the board approved us partnering with them in that law firm, Keller Rohrbach, in that process. Then we had a lot of board policies that were recommended from last month that were approved, and I'm not going to be able to go through all of those because I think there were 7 of them. Please look at your board book for those. But those are the updates for tonight. The board comments at the end. Just a lot of grateful thanks for all of the high school presenters that came and the students that came tonight, and a lot of support for going out and voting. And several board members said, please do vote yes. I can't advocate, so you're not hearing that from me, but our board members did want you to hear their support for that. So that's it for our board meeting for October 11th, 2022. That's your update. I'm Steve Cook. Have a great evening, and we'll see you in the schools. Thank you.